Well, welcome to Take 10. We come to you every week with a look at a variety of mental health and related issues as they affect caregivers and caregiving. I'm Ron Aaron. Our co-hosts are here as well. Carol Zernial holds a master's degree in social gerontology, some 30 years experience in the field. She's co-chair of the Raise Family Caregiving Advisory Council and executive director of the WellMed Charitable Foundation. And Dr. Jamie Heisman. Dr. Heisman is the Chief Compassion Officer for WellMed Medical Management, well known nationally for his work in caregiving as well as addictions. And Dr. Jamie, we were talking off the air about social media and the impact it has on caregivers. Explain that.
Well, this is a fascinating topic because I just did an interview on social media for organizations, corporations, and came to the knowledge, if you will, or if you will, the insight from our charity, which is the STAR Network. By the way, survivors of toxic abusive relationship, that we're being detached, that we're being dysregulated, that really human beings, and especially caregivers should hear this one, came together because we were connected. We were neurologically connected. We felt safe in each other's presence. We actually heal by the other person being in a healthy relationship with us. That's why we don't want people to isolate. That's the worst thing in the world. Don't isolate, don't isolate, don't isolate. So we're starting to detach through social media. And unfortunately, our kids, now with AI especially, are actually detaching at a much more rapid rate. But my conversation went to that in an interview about family caregivers, that it's really a double-edged sword for family caregivers. So yes, there's three things that are challenging around them. One is that they see images which aren't true, because that's what social media is, a big image creator. They do get to connect with people on resources at the end of the day, but they got to be very personally careful about what they share as well, because it's not just them, it's their loved ones. So it's a double-edged sword for caregivers.
Well, so social media is used for support groups. So that might be a positive way to actually, reinforce, or, what are the pitfalls? If it's online, it must be true kind of thinking.
Well, you're right, Carol. I love the fact that you're clarifying this, because even at our foundation, we do very safe, very confidential support groups where people learn from each other, which is co-regulation, which is what you do with Caregiver SOS throughout the country, through the foundation, is you get people to share, connect, bond, create what we call families of choice. So there's a place for support in a Zoom place, let's say, that HIPAA approved, and you feel comfortable with the other people that you're with. But when you come out of that, which I think is the positive function, then you start detaching. You start looking at social media and the image people project as being true, authentic, and they're really not. And so then you also start, obviously, putting in maybe sometimes your stories, which is sometimes a good thing to get it out. I prefer to get it out through poetry, through writing, through journals. But then you have to remember that you're not just getting it out for yourself, you're also telling somebody else's story, which is sometimes for us therapists a no-no, because we share our own stories.
So what I hear you, Jamie, is saying that part of the danger is comparing ourselves to others. Though grass is greener, other people's lives are better than ours. But also on social media, I'm surprised at the negative reactions that sometimes when you reach out for support, in the social media realm, instead you get slapped down for being weak or not knowing something, and people seem to feel free to comment very negatively.
Oh, I totally agree. It's a fairly narcissistic black and white sort of things. And now we have trolls and people who literally are in that judgment phase instead of the compassionate world, which is just like me. Again, I always say that. What's compassion? It's saying just like me. So sharing our caregiving stories just to blow off steam and getting upset is sometimes a reactive function, and then other people react. And that's the problem in terms of, using social media as an outlet. And I so agree with you, Carol. I think the judgmental side, it's always easier to look at somebody else's life than look at your own, allows people to not look at themselves, not look in the mirror, not take care of themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And they just tee off on others. And so it's a pretty nasty, toxic world. That's how we have our foundation at the Star Network.
Hold that thought. We're going to come right back to you. If you just joined us, you're listening to Take 10. I'm Ron Aaron, along with Dr. Jamie Heisman and Carol Zernial, and we're talking about social media and the impact it has on caregivers. What about the care recipients, Dr. Jamie, those who are cognitively aware, who also are into social media, who may use that as a way to vent and complain about their own situation?
Well, to Carol's point, and I think it's a great point, we do need to segment. We need to peel the onion here. There is a good side. And I think for carees, again, the virtual support function, if it's a safe place, facilitated by safe people, you see the trends and you feel comfortable with the trends. And you can even on Zoom not even have your real name or picture on it. Well, then obviously it's a very safe place for people with mild cognitive impairment, sharing chronic illnesses or terminal illnesses, God forbid, or acute illnesses, to really connect with each other. Again, a co-regulation, because sometimes the caregiver is at their wit's end, right? And the caree needs another quote unquote family of choice. But when the caregiver goes in either to Dr. Google or starts looking at social media and comparing their stories, and like Carol says, then basically, like Blanche Dubois, depending upon the kindness of strangers to be able to help them, well, we got more problems at that point.
Maybe we need a training session for everybody on social media.
Totally agree.
Well, and at the worst end of the spectrum, we see these influencers, and a lot of times it's young people who are actually committing suicide because the validation that they get, the struggle that they get to get that validation and their self-worth from social media, which doesn't always come through for them, and then they end up feeling valueless. How do we know where, we don't have a caregiver or a caree slipping into that kind of a situation?
Well, chances are you are. That's the issue. As a therapist, most people don't come see your therapist literally to develop self-esteem, spiritual grounding, understand who they are. Because if we understand who we are, and we always say this, like Metallica's song, then nothing else matters. You will not be susceptible to the words in those people. But to your point, Carol, we're in this world of likes, how many people have viewed us, and measuring ourselves from external functions. That's called codependency, when, people, places, and things define our self-esteem. So more likely than not, you probably have that vulnerable individual measuring themselves. We have to know who we are. We have to get a good therapist. We have to get a good, safe group around us. We have to emotionally regulate, meaning stress reduction, deal with our own stress, and hang around safe people, because it is a wild west out there. And unfortunately, to your point, most people aren't clinically or personally ready for what they may get on social media.
Well, and I think you see that when you see people all of a sudden disappear from social media, that just get overwhelmed with either negative responses or bad things are going on in their life. So if I know a caregiver, what might be warning signs that a caregiver is in a bad place, whether it's from social media or not? What should I be looking for?
Well, I think it's a great point, because your caregiver, caree, or even adolescents are the same way, right? It's if you care enough about somebody. Okay, you want to do a social welfare check on your friend. You can watch them. Are they still engaged with you? Are they still meeting, you in halfway? Without you kind of creating what I call learned helplessness, meaning are they showing up in their own self-esteem? Are they a player in their life, in your life? Have they shifted? Because if they start getting darker, detached, away, Carol, you can probably bet your bottom dollar that they're dealing with social media or looking at external sort of validation. And I really believe you need to be attuned, we call it, attuned with your caree or your caregiver as a relationship, working as hard as the other person. And then you'll understand if something has changed or shifted. If it has, start looking into it quickly.
All right. We got to leave it right there. That's another entire Take 10. What do you do when you think the caregiver is in trouble? For Dr. Jamie Heisman, for Carol Zernial, I'm Ron Aaron. Thanks for joining us on Take 10.